What you doing?
Trying on glasses with Zenny's 3D virtual try-on.
Wait, are those the actual prices? I say get all of them.
Seriously, why not, right?
Oh, now I want new glasses.
Zenni.com. Quality prescription glasses starting at $6.95.
Hello, and welcome to the V Single Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Allison Stevenson.
And I'm Alexandra Tweeten.
And we are back this week. I guess we took maybe 2 weeks off or something again. So
Yeah.
It's okay. We're back. We'll always be back. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah. I've been going through like I don't know if you read that article about languishing on the New York Times. But my therapist was like, hey, I read this article and it really made me think of you.
Wow.
And then we talked about it in our session. But yeah, it was the languishing article. And I was like, yeah.
They emailed it to you?
No, she like brought it up in the session and I was like, and she was like, does this sound like this is like you, right? And we read it together and I was like, yep, that's basically, that's it.
Do you want to describe it?
Yeah, it's called, actually, I don't have it in front of me, but let me find it. But languishing, it's like hold on.
Kind of like a mental exhaustion, kind of like a giving up, not giving up entirely, but like my brain can't handle a lot right now, sort of.
Yeah. In the article, it's like not depression, not so far as depression, but also not being like, not having the greatest mental health either. The New York Times article, a name for the blah you're feeling, the void between depression and flourishing, the absence of well-being. It can dull your motivation and focus, and it may be the dominant emotion of 2021.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been feeling that pretty hardcore.
Yeah. I just have felt so stuck lately and just like, no motivation, can't do anything, just like no creativity is coming. It's just like, it's so weird and hard. So, trying to get over that somehow.
How do you just force yourself to do things, or you just kind of let it be, let yourself languish for a little while? Or
I guess, I don't know. The article was like, name it. And I think having a name for it is helpful.
Yeah.
And like acknowledging that like, this is what it is. And then, trying to do stuff that you find joy in. And I don't know. I think I'm a big, like, just let it happen.
And, same.
It is what it is.
Forced creativity almost never actually goes well.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to force myself to like have good ideas, or like trying to force myself to like think of a new joke, or like write some. It just like I can do it, but it's never as good as when I'm like, in the shower and there's an epiphany and I'm like having to rush to my computer to, it's definitely not the same. It's always better when it kind of just comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I put the podcast out a week late, because I was just like, I can't do anything. But I feel like it's coming back. I feel like I'm a little bit better now. I like got some notes from my agent about my book, and
that's good.
Yeah. So I'm like doing another revision, and yeah, now we're doing this podcast. So like, I don't know, it's good to have things scheduled.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also think it's like, I feel like there's just like this undercover exhaustion, like,
Yeah.
you know, kind of like when you're like driving, you're on a road trip and you're like, technically I'm just sitting in a car, but for some reason this is exhausting.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's all of 2020. It's like, okay, technically we were like just sitting at home, but there was something about it that was so draining.
It is. And yeah, I was thinking about it and like, yeah, the whole year I've just felt like, oh my God, why can't you do anything? Why can't you get anything done? Like, and just like beating myself up about it. And then it's like, but then when you think about it as a whole, like on a macro level, it's like, yeah, remember how we were trying to not die and how we were like worried about our families dying and like, remember when
that all took mental space in our heads.
Yeah. And then remember when the president like didn't take it seriously and wasn't helping us at all and was actively like making it worse. And then when people tried to like take over the Capitol and like all that shit, like, it was like, it was so mentally exhausting and draining just existing. And it's like, of course you can't be creative and like really do awesome, great work when that's like in the background.
But then you would see people being creative. And to me, that's just like, okay, are you a sociopath? Like you would still see people like churning shit out and like I would try, but it would just never feel right. Like I would be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm forcing something out of me. I would just see people like, writing all these funny sketches and doing all this funny content. And like, especially when it's funny content, I'm like, they're constantly churning out hilarious content. And to me, that's like, I don't know, man, there's something wrong with your brain there. If like, you're still just like, ha ha ha, life's a bunch of laughs.
I know, right? I'm just like, how, but like, do you see what's going on in the world? Like, I don't, So I feel like a lot of the last year has just been like, me wanting to lay down on the floor and give up. And now that the end is in sight, like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're both vaccinated fully.
Vaxxed.
Finally.
So exciting.
It's surreal. It's like, holy shit. But at the same time, like, even though I'm fully vaccinated, like at the same time, it's like, it's still going to be a while before things are back to normal. And it's like in that weird in between time. And it just feels really shitty still.
Yeah, it does. But it definitely feels more hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? I mean, I definitely feel like probably I don't know, like 70% better than I felt like a few months ago.
Yeah. I definitely feel more like excited about like the coming months or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I definitely feel a little more like, all right, things are going to happen eventually. We're all getting vaxxed, especially Los Angeles is doing really well with vaccinations.
Yeah. And California has the lowest rate of infections in the country.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's pretty exciting.
I guess that's why we felt so compelled. We felt like it would be okay to go to a strip club.
We did. It was our first outing, fully vaccinated outing this weekend. And we went to visit our friend
who works right now. The only strip club really open in Los Angeles. I think there's very few open.
Yeah.
This is one of the few.
Yeah, I honestly don't really know how they're open, but whatever.
They're definitely you're playing a risky game there. But I mean, everyone was wearing their masks and stuff, so it wasn't like. Or were they actually?
No, they weren't. I was like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I was. I think I was.
So we went to this strip club in the Deep Valley because our friend was working and we wanted to go see her. And it was an experience. It was so weird. It was so weird just to do things around people inside.
Yes, that plus it was a strip club in the valley, like of all things.
Yeah. We walked in and like there were just so many dudes standing around.
Dudes,
huh?
Valley dudes.
Yeah, valley dudes. It was.
If you're not familiar, the Valley is like the suburbs of Los Angeles. It's where I grew up. It's very anywhere USA, like shockingly.
Yeah.
Compared to like Los Angeles proper.
Yeah.
And it's the part of the Valley we were in specifically was also like even more like that.
Yeah, it was a weird crew of people. Like there was like
they're
at
still
one point
listening to Sublime and wearing like board shorts. Yeah. Like they never really left 2008, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was like there at one point this guy walked in and he looked like a farmer and was wearing like
he was kind of hot though.
Oh no, that one. I saw that one. That guy was cute. No, I'm talking about a different one.
Oh,
okay. He was like old. He was like old and was like just looked like I don't know. He was wearing like overalls, but like the blue stripy ones, like it was like what farmers where I'm from, what farmers wear, like who actually work in fields. And he was old and looked like a farmer. And I was like, where did you come from? Like this old farmer was in there.
Wow. I don't even remember that. Damn.
Yeah. And I just remember looking over and being like, whoa, where am I?
Yeah, it was definitely not like the strip clubs we are accustomed to going
No,
to.
It was very weird also because none of them were tipping the dancers. And it made me very concerned.
That was so infuriating. Like literally these dancers would go up and there would be like no dollar bills on the ground.
Yeah, because it was, I guess it's like more of just like, oh, it's a bar and there's also dancers there that happen to be there. But like,
yeah, it's technically, well, no, actually, I think it's topless. It's not even a bikini bar. It's a topless bar.
Yeah, that's true. But it seemed like the clientele did not feel obligated to like tip the dancers, which is concerning.
Fuck. And they were still trying to hit aggressively on every single dancer.
Yeah, that was.
And just not giving up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
was an
was
experience. Like, I was like, whoa, I have not been in an inside of a bar in over a year.
And the first one we pick.
Yeah.
It's a strip club in the Valley.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely would not have gone if I wasn't fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
I still had the reaction of like, oh my God. I was like, this feels wrong. Like
it did feel weird.
Yeah. But then I was like, well, I'm fully vaccinated. So
yeah, I felt okay, especially like, you know, after a few drinks in me, I was like, all right, we're chill. I think that's probably why bars are going to be the last to open, is because as soon as people get drunk, they're like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But it was an experience. And then when we were like leaving, do you remember what happened when we were leaving?
Oh, yeah.
Made a friend.
There was a guy outside and he like drunkenly stumbled up to us. It was just like, hey, what's up? And then he was like to Allison, he was like, why aren't you up there? And then she was like, I don't remember. She was just like, I don't work there.
Yeah,
whatever.
Like, I'm not working.
And he was like, why not? And he was like, if you were up there, I'd throw everything I had on stage, including my ID. What?
I don't remember that part.
He was like, I'd throw everything in my wallet up at you, including my ID.
Like, when he first approached us, he was showing us a bullet wound on his stomach.
Oh, yeah. And then he was like, I'm fresh out of jail on parole. He was like, look, I got shot not too long ago, and like lifted up his shirt and showed us his wound. And we were like, oh. Man.
We're like, all
Nice.
right. Yeah, we're just like, oh man, that's a bummer or whatever. And then he was like real pissed because the club like kicked him out, I guess, because he brought in his own bottle of liquor.
Yeah.
Is what I think that's what he said, right? He was like, they kicked me out because I brought my own bottle of Jameson or whatever.
Mhm.
And we're like, damn, that sucks. Like we were just like waiting for our Uber, like, man, what a bummer or whatever. And then he like I guess he was so mad that he went to the planters that were at the front of the building and started moving them toward the driveway to like block the driveway so cars couldn't get out.
Just like as a
little prank.
fuck you to the bar.
Yeah. It was so funny though, because remember, like a car pulled up to the driveway.
Yeah, there was someone trying to leave.
Yeah, like right as he was doing this, a car is actually trying to get out of the driveway. And this woman steps out and she's just like being a total bitch to him. And she's just like, what the fuck are you doing? In like really intense tone. And this man, I tell you, after he was telling us he just got out of prison and was shot, and like I was like, man, this man's hard as fuck. He cowered in fear at this woman. He was like, his tail was between his legs. She was just like, what the fuck? Like really?
Yeah, she was like, move this shit out of the way. And then he was like, oh, okay, sorry. And then like started moving. And then her boyfriend got out of the car and he was like, whoa. And then she was like, get in the car. I'm handling it.
Yeah, it was the coolest thing. I was like, damn, this woman is like inspiring.
Yeah, she was just like, move your shit out of the way. And then like they were able to leave. Then
our Uber finally came, and as we were leaving, we could see him putting the planters back. That was like the highlight. That was probably the highlight of 2021 for me so far.
Yeah,
that
just
whole interaction.
Having interactions with other people, with strangers, and
strangers again.
Haven't seen one of those in a while.
Same. Next, I want to touch a stranger.
Ooh.
In the dick. They can touch my...
Working your way up.
Oh, man. It just seems really like... I actually was almost going to go on a date on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. So was I.
Oh, yeah. That didn't happen.
What happened with yours?
I don't know, man. It's like, okay, because in my mind, I'm like, inside of me, there are two wolves, sort of a thing. There's like the horny wolf who like is like, you know what? Yeah, I just want to fuck. I just want to go on dates. I'm horny as hell. Like, let's do this. Like, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. Like, my mentality right now is I'm only looking for a relationship with someone who like is going to simp for me hard and meets like all of my standards. And it's just like, I know I'm not going to find that guy on Tinder. I'm probably not going to find that guy for a while. Mm-hmm. So right now my state of mind is like, okay, I'm just down to like meet up with dudes who are chill and like just hang out and fuck. And like, that's all I want right now. But they gotta be like chill. Like I don't want it to be like a complete stranger. Like I guess I want like friends with benefits or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's kind of my mentality. But then the other half of me, when it comes to actually meeting up with these strangers, like it all just feels so exhausting. Where I'm like, oh god, I gotta like get to know him, and then like, you know, because I don't want it to just be a random fuck. Like I still want to like. See if we get along and stuff. So it's like, like we gotta like go through this process of like meeting up and talking and like, you know, seeing what happens. And
I know. This is the languishing part where it's like, but like I want to, but it's like, why bother?
Right. It's like, you know what? And then
so
like
much work.
Texting, I'm like, I don't feel like there's a real, like we don't have much in common. Like it's probably not gonna be what I want. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I just canceled. I was like, look, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like not in the mood really or whatever. And he was like, okay. And like, yeah.
Was this from Tinder?
Yeah, it's from Tinder. That's all. Like they're only from Tinder. I don't know how else to meet men right now. And yeah, so I'm just like, I'm on the app, but I'm not. It's just everything just feels so exhausting. Just the thought of doing these things. Like I kind of wish someone would just like appear in my life. And
If only. I know. It's like, why can't someone just like appear in front of me when I'm sitting on my couch in my living room?
Right? Why not?
Yeah. I know. And it's like, oh, fuck. You got to like put yourself out there. Ugh.
Yeah.
Exhausting.
And it's like, I even think about like men from my past. I'm like, is there anyone from my past who I could just like kind of hit up? And there isn't. We either ended on bad terms or they're in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, I can't think of anyone who I could like revisit. Even my ex-boyfriend got a new girlfriend already.
Wow.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at this point, it's just like I've gone so long. So it's like, I'm also at the just like, what's the point? And also, I don't want to have like a casual whatever, because I know then I'll get attached to them and then it'll just be like wasting my own time. And
see, yeah, I get it. I don't think I'll get attached because I really like what I want is so specific at this point. Like I really know what I want.
mm-hmm.
And I just like looking at these men on Tinder, like none of them are that.
Mm-hmm.
And unless someone really fucking wows me and I'm like so shocked, like who they are on Tinder is so different from who they are in real life.
Yeah.
Like I just don't see myself getting emotionally attached
Mm-hmm.
to anybody.
Yeah.
We're all fuckboys. None of them want a relationship. And that's like that's not hot to me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm over it. I'm just like, it's not exciting.
Yeah.
I'm bored. I'm so bored by that mentality. And it's to the point where I'm like, I'm not even attracted to that. Like I can't even.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I was supposed to also hang out with someone on Sunday, and then he texted me, was like, "Oh, what are you up to?" or whatever, and I was like, "It's a long story, but I'm leaving a strip club in the Deep Valley." And then the next day when we were supposed to hang out, I was like, "Hey, you still want to hang out tonight?" And he was like, "I do, but I'm still fairly cautious until I'm fully vaccinated. I feel like if you were at a strip club last night, that's way too scary COVID-wise for me to interact with you. I think until I'm fully at my 2 weeks, if that's all right with you."
Okay.
And so,
yeah, all right.
So I forgot that he's had his second shot, but his 2 weeks weren't up yet. So I was like, oh yeah, shit. So he's taking it very seriously, which is good. That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, just waiting for him to like have his full 2 weeks.
And then you'll hang out.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good. He didn't straight up bail. He just rescheduled.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally, like, if I weren't fully vaccinated, like I would not have done it either.
I don't think any of us would have gone if we weren't fully vaxxed.
But yeah, because walking in there, I was just like, oh, this is like a COVID
hotspot. This is where it started.
Yeah, like this is the where, yeah, definitely. So I don't know. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense. Checks out.
But yeah, that's all of my my updates. How about you?
I got nothing. Almost went on a date, didn't. Oh, I'm moving.
Oh yeah. You're moving closer to me.
Even closer, yes. Like now, like what?
5 minutes
mile away? Yeah, like pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of been the majority of my life. Actually, is just packing all my shit up and moving and figuring that out.
Yeah, we'll be able to walk to each other's houses now.
That's true. It is just a straight shot.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yep. Well, anyway, I guess we should get into this interview.
Yes, let's do that.
All right.
What you doing?
Trying on glasses with Zenny's 3D virtual try-on.
Wait, are those the actual prices? I say get all of them.
Seriously, why not, right?
Oh, now I want new glasses.
Zenni.com. Quality prescription glasses starting at $6.95.
And we're back. And this week we have a very special guest. She is a comedian, actor, writer, musician, author of How to Be Alone if you want to, and even if you don't, and creator of Tinder Live. It is Lane Moore.
Yay. Hi. So good to be here finally.
Hi. I'm so excited to have you on the show because I've been following you for so long, and I feel like we've been in each other's internet periphery for so many years, and we've never actually spoken.
No, just emails and knowing each other's existence, and that's the internet. But yeah, very much so.
I feel like you probably get this a lot though. Everyone just wants to be your friend because you're so or thinks they're your friend. And I was like, I feel like I'm her friend already, but she probably gets that a lot.
I'm okay with that though. Who wouldn't want that? I get a lot of DMs that are can we be real friends? And I'm like, how is this not real friendship? I think it is. That's fine with me. And I'm I have so much anxiety and I have so many feelings about friendships. So it's and I've kind of tried to do that where it's I think as an adult, it's it can be so challenging to be wait, how do I form something that's a different kind of there's all these types of friendship. It's just very overwhelming. Yeah. So I'm totally okay with oh yeah, this person is nice to me on the internet and I think they're cool on the internet too. That's
okay, cool.
It can just be that and doesn't have to.
Yeah, it's it doesn't, you don't have to show up at the hospital if I'm at the hospital. You could, that's cool. But I think I just, one of the biggest themes of my life has been all right, well, what counts as a friendship? And I think it can be anything that you want. So I love that. I think especially as somebody who always, anybody who, has had some friendship trauma or relational trauma, which I definitely have. I think there's something really nice about being oh, I have these friends on the internet who are really nice and cool. And I'm not constantly freaked out that I'm going to do something wrong or they're mad at me or, but to be honest, I can be nervous that a stranger is angry at me real easily. So
same.
I mean, things are just so different today where it's people can really get to know you through these platforms in ways that, we couldn't even 15 years ago, something, so it's it definitely, a lot of people will say it's surface level and not real, but it's there is a reality. There is, people open up online to people they don't know. And I mean, there's good and bad attached to that, but it's just different. It's so odd now how I feel I have so many friends, but when it comes to actually who I'm hanging out with and texting, it's 4 people.
Well, but there's so many of us who that's true for. And I always thought that it was just me. Before I wrote How to Be Alone, I was oh, I'm the only one who feels they have no quote unquote real friends. And that I have that it seems everybody, would think that I have all these friends, and actually forming those connections has been really challenging for me. But again, I think that's part of why I relate so much online. Cause I'm able to find this community of people who at least on some level feel we get each other. Whereas in real life, that's more challenging for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that's okay. You don't have to have a deep connection with every person, you know what I mean? It can be just 50%. It doesn't have to be all in with every single person in your life in order to consider them a friend, What I mean?
That's what I'm kind of realizing. And it's funny because like what it means something different to everybody. Like friendship means something different to everybody. Like I had somebody recently who I'd always thought their work was cool, and we kind of talked, and they were like, I'd really like to like actually be your friend, but I feel like you have all these friends. And I'm like, why do we all think everybody else has all these freaking friends? Like we're all thinking that, especially the more online you are, which so many of us are anyway, there's this idea that like, and I have that with other people too. I'm like, oh, I'm sure they already have enough friends.
Yeah.
And, and it's like,
they're good.
Right. But we're all just like alone as fuck. Like I just
Exactly. And I did want to talk about just like so you have been writing about being alone and this topic for so long. And now like with the pandemic, it's just like everyone is like, how do you think quarantine and the pandemic has affected everyone else who like has never been alone before? Like, is there this like massive crisis?
A little bit, one of the things that drove me like, I just was a little bit irksome at the beginning of the pandemic is there were a couple people who would like make jokes that were like, oh, you wrote How to Be Alone. We're all going to be alone now. You're like a pro at it. And I'm like, how dare you think that like somebody who's experienced a lot of loneliness and isolation is just going to coast during the pandemic? Like it's not going to be even more triggering as like, oh, this is an old hat for me. Like, no, I don't know why I turned into Betty Davis, but it was right. But like, I think there are so many people who like really weren't used to it. But I think for people who like had spent a lot of time alone as kids, and which I definitely did, and like, have been isolated for one reason or another, this was like, I think even harder for us, because I know for me, I was just right before the pandemic hit. I was like, I'm going to go like tour with Tinder Live. I'm going to like go out more. I like want to be more social. I'm finally ready to like engage with people and like do all these social things.
We had so many plans.
Right. And like a shift was happening for me in that, where it wasn't like, oh no, I go to parties every night. Where are my parties at? Like, it was like, I think I'm finally ready to do all these things. And then life was like, back in the apartment you go. And I was like, but I've already been in there. So I think there's something about that was like harder for people who were like kind of maybe ready to come out that way. Or even if they weren't, had always been like this. Had always dealt with this, and now people were like, oh, this is disgusting. How do people live like this? And it's like, lots of people do, but okay. Yeah. A lot of feelings.
I'm kind of in a similar boat as you, where my childhood, I was alone a lot. I was an only child. Were you an only child?
No.
Oh, okay. But I don't know if you felt like this, but a lot of the pandemic to me, like it felt like I was a teenager again. Like it really felt like being a child again, in a weird way, where I was like, I almost regressed a little bit, where it was just like, wow, this is like legit me being like 13-year-old Allison again, like in my room constantly,
In
watching
what way
TV.
though? Like, I don't want to ask, like, tell me as much as you want to tell, but like, I'm curious, like, so there's like being it's so funny. It means so many different things to different people. So like, when you were growing up, was it like, I don't have a sibling, or was your family not great?
I didn't have a sibling.
Okay.
I didn't have a sibling until I was 16.
Okay.
And then also like not great family life in the sense that like there was a lot of me kind of being left to my own devices.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
sometimes people just mean like, my parents were amazing. I just didn't have a little friend. And I'm like, that's different. And I don't understand that at all.
Oh, no.
No offense.
Your TV is your babysitter because like mom and dad are fighting constantly. So it's like, you really do have to like make your bedroom like your whole universe. Like it's your whole...
You're speaking my language now. Literally, the dedication and How to Be Alone is like all of the movies and TV shows and books and music that were my best friends. Like, because this is who I was raised by, influenced by, best friends with, So there was, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, where it was like, oh no, I've already done this. Actually. I've already been super isolated.
I'm over it.
And retreat to is TV. I don't want to do this anymore. But I did do some of the I was like listening to songs I loved as a kid, and like revisiting those movies, but not in the way you want to.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how I wanted to go back to that time period. So
not in a weird, like, forced way where you.
Yeah, I don't want to do it in like again. And like, I always used to joke that like if I say I feel like a kid again, you should call 911 because like that's not a good thing for me. Like some people are like, I feel like a kid again. And I'm like, oh my God, if I feel like a child again, we gotta make arrangements. There's gotta be a bed change. Like it wasn't happy for me. So like
Oh, wow.
I don't want to feel like that again. It's always this idea that that was the best time in your life. And for so many of us, it was not at all. If that was the not
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think that's
the year. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's a super important perspective to have and to talk about because, like, usually the perspective of people is like, I had a great childhood, like the overarching, like, general. And, but at the same time, like, I think your perspective is so unique, but it's also universal because you talk a lot about how your childhood was like traumatizing and problematic and all this. And I think but even people that didn't have that kind of childhood relate so much to what you're talking about anyway.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's interesting because like when I wrote it and I first started talking about it, I literally had so much fear up until the publication and had so many times when I was like, I can't publish this. I can't be this vulnerable and say that like I've been through this much pain and I've felt this separate from everybody else. Everybody else is going to be like, what's wrong with you? I had an amazing family and I had perfect friends and I had the perfect husband and you're a freak. Like I just, I genuinely was like really scared because exactly like nobody fucking talks about this. We really don't because especially in social media, it's all this like, it's the holidays again, my favorite time of year. My family's never had problems and we're all rich. Like it's just, that's all I would see. So raising your hand and being like, I don't relate to any of this felt terrifying, but I get like hundreds of letters even still. And the book's been out a while, like a week from people being like, I didn't know I wasn't the only one. And neither did I. So again, it's been interesting. And like you said, with like, even people who are like, actually had a great childhood, but I still feel alone all the time is just, or like, I still struggle to form connections and to date and all these things. I really didn't realize how relatable it was. I really didn't.
Yeah. And like your TikToks are like blowing up about the attached attachment style. Attachment styles.
It's been such a like natural progression, I think, for me, because so much of what I share online and like so much of what I talked about in How to Be Alone is all of the coping mechanisms that like I formed and that I had to discover on my own, because unless you're very, very lucky, no one tells you this stuff. So for me, learning about attachment theory was really interesting. And like, I wanted to put it in How to Be Alone because it made me realize, oh, that's why this friendship didn't work. That was never going to work. They were avoidant and I was anxious or whatever it was. And, now being able to do it on Instagram and TikTok and things like that, and being able to put it through a comedic lens, because so much of the stuff, so much of mental health stuff is through this really clinical, boring lens that like I have too much ADHD for. I can't focus on. I'm just like, what? This is so boring. A study did what? Like, I want to know, like, so for me, it was taking all this research that I had done and metabolizing it and being like, oh, how can I explain this in a more fun way to myself and others? And it's been really, I think there's just a lot of people who learn that way too. That's always how I learned. I was never able to look at those facts. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just like reading that book, The Attached Book, like it just changed so much for me. Cause I was like, everything made sense.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I wish, we talk about it on the podcast all the time, but like, I just am like, I wish that everyone understood this. Cause wouldn't it be awesome if like everyone you dated like could just talk about it and be like, oh, well, I have anxious tendencies. And then like the other person would be like, oh, well, I have these tendencies. And then you could just like be real about it.
Like a whole bunch of months That's what you could do, is skip so many freaking months.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, and I hate to inform you of this. There are people who have read my book and have read, books like this, and they will come to me and they don't think they're avoidant, and I fucking see that they are. So, like, no, this just happened to me recently. And I was like, you think you're secure? Oh, that's cute, because I'm watching you be so avoidant.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He did read it.
I that's what I was going to say, is I think the only person who benefits from knowing their attachment style is anxious. Because we're the only ones that will own up to it. And we're the only ones who like understand why we like, it feels like it's specifically written for the anxious attachment style. And like,
I mean, it kind of is.
Probably won't even need to read the book. Avoidant people are in denial. So it's really just anxious people.
And they don't, but it's so funny because I'm like, I'm trying to choose my stories on this, because there were so many people who reached out to me because they read How to Be Alone and they were like, oh my God, I really relate to you. And then we would like connect, and I just assumed, I just projected that like they, had some anxious attachment or that they were working through their attachment stuff. But I can't tell you how many people had approached me and were just the most avoidant people. And, maybe they were on a path of that, but it was that like strange thing to me of like, wait. I literally like talk about having an anxious attachment. I talk about how toxic the anxious avoidant dynamic is. And here you are, this like deeply avoidant person, and you want to actively be in my life for what? A murder suicide? Like, I don't like, how did you not know that's going to be the worst thing for me? Not going to be great for you. But again, it's just like, I'm not perfect with everything either. It's just like, people only see so much of themselves. And so I've now realized that when people are like, oh my God, I loved your book, there's a part of me that's like, can I ask how? Because you never know, are you relating to it because you're doing that work on yourself, or are you relating to it because you thought it was funny and you see some of the, I don't know. It just is, I guess my point is, that's what I had hoped. When people started reaching out, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get a bunch of like secure attachment friends and dates. And like, it's going to be so rad because I've laid out how I am, what I need, what's compatible. And it's, it
didn't happen. Yeah.
How has dating been, like, since being so open online about your personal stuff? And like, cause we talk about this too all the time, how like, cause we have our shit out there where it's like, we just talk about it. And so I personally am like, I feel like guys get kind of scared. But I don't know, how's your experience been?
Okay. So, there are some real similarities obviously between us, because Tinder Live is so similar in that, I'm calling out shitty behavior of dudes. And because of that, I guess I'll like quickly explain what Tinder Live is.
Yes, please.
Don't know what it is. But, so I go on, well, pre-pandemic time, it would be on a screen. Pandemic, it's been through Zoom, but, I go on my Tinder on a screen so you can see what I'm doing. I swipe live with the audience. So they're choosing whether I swipe right or left. And we're only picking the most ridiculous guys to talk to live. So, it's really like Bye Philippe.
Wait, so you're showing guys' profiles?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we have
Are they like vetted beforehand or anything like that? Or is it just
it's totally improvised? It's all happening in real time. So it's like, we're going through them and then, whoever pops up, and then we talk to whoever is around. And I only pick the weirdest ones because I'm very mindful of like, and anybody who's seen the show knows this, like, it's a very kind show. I'm not trying to like bait and switch anybody. And it's really like silly. It's very silly. Like there was a guy we did on a recent show where like his profile said that all of his photos were taken from the perspective of a fish. like looking at you. And so the second we started talking, I talked to him as though I was a fish and I wouldn't let up. Like I just kept being like, no, seriously, like I live in an aquarium. And he was like, ha ha ha. I was like, I am not kidding. So like, it's just very, very silly I'm not like pretending to be like the perfect woman. Like my character on Tinder Live is like kind of nuts. I told one guy once I was like trapped in the woods and he tried to help get me out. It's just really, it's over the top. So, but because of that, I will, when I've tried to online date myself, like the second that I sign up for a dating app, there's someone who's like, oh, am I on Tinder Live right now? And I'm like, I'm also lonely. Like, yes, I do this, but I'm also single. And like, also like, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, why would I do that? Well, I also don't need to do that. There's so many bad profiles out there. There's so many horrible experiences. Like, I don't need to dig for them. I'm not trying to make someone look bad. I don't need to. Y'all are doing that yourselves. So it's strange when people are like, maybe it's well-intentioned. Maybe they're just like, oh, I don't want to do something she's going to make fun of. But I'm like, but if you've seen the show, you know, that's not really what I do. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, we always say on here, like, if you don't want us to talk about you, don't do anything shitty.
That's exactly right. That's literally what it is. I'm just like and you know, it's so funny because I was talking to a guy friend of mine recently, and you know, when you're talking to men, I don't know if this is universal. I feel like it probably is, unfortunately. But you know, when you're talking to men and they're like, oh, do you know my buddy Gabe? And you're like, yeah, Gabe's a piece of shit to many of my friends. And they're like, what? But Gabe is my bro. And you're like, well, Gabe sucks. And you feel like you've made it weird. And, but I was like, but like sometimes men will do this thing where they'll be like, well, how was he weird? And it's like, they want it to like, they're like, is it just that he asked you out and you didn't want to go out? Like they always make it the most innocuous, dumb thing as the women are so sensitive.
Yeah. And
I'm like, no. And it's like, then you say some real dark shit they weren't expecting. And I feel like it's the same thing with Tinder Live. And like, I'm not sitting there being like, oh, are you going to slip up? Like, no, your whole Tinder profile is you yelling at women and like saying horrible things. Like I think there's this idea that like women must be really reaching to like find something bad. And I'm like, no, I would honestly love it if like this wasn't the culture.
Yeah.
But it is the culture.
Yeah. I can't wait for the day when we don't have to talk about this anymore.
That sounds right. That sounds
can't wait.
But literally, and I assume it's similar for you, Tinder Live came about because the first time I went on Tinder, I was like, how are these profiles so bad, uniquely in so many different ways? And you start to internalize it. And I imagined other women were too, where it was like, am I the only one getting these horrible profiles? Am I the only one matching with these weird people? Am I the only one who like, we talked for 2 days and then they just stopped talking? Like you start to think it's just you. And one of the things I love about Tinder Live is it makes so many other women be like, oh, it's just like this. It's not personal. It's not like it really is this sense of community, honestly. And that's exactly what inspired by Felipe as well. Like just getting these messages and then realizing when you talk to other women, like, oh, other people get this too. But honestly, before that, I was like, I just thought it was me. Like, that's what I'm saying. And it was like, I realized like the possibility of like, oh, wow, if I did this in a room full of other people, like this could be really cool. And we would all know we were in this together. And it takes the sting out of it. Like when I'm doing Tinder Live versus when I'm just on a dating app myself, the feeling is totally different. Like obviously it's a different vibe, but like, I can just say whatever I want. I'm just like as weird as I want. It doesn't feel as heavy, but when I'm on the apps by myself, it's like everything just feels heavy the whole time. You're just like, oh, gross. Yeah. Oh my God, the person seems amazing. And we didn't match, or we did, and they're not going to talk to me. It's so exhausting. Yeah.
What's been happening to me lately is I've been matching with cute guys, being like, oh, finally, a cute guy that I'm attracted to appeared out of like a million who I don't fucking talk to. and then I message and I just say like hi or whatever, and then they unmatch. I've been getting unmatched like constantly, like literally like 4 times in a row it's happened where I initiate and then they just unmatch. And it's like, wow, it really, even though I've been doing this shit for so long, even though I know not to take it personally, like you can rationalize and be like, yes, I understand, blah, 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 but it still fucking stings no matter what. Like it still feels like, oh my God.
Especially if you like, I had one where like, the guy had literally like liked one of my photos. Like he had initiated it to be like, oh, I'm into you. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll match with you. And then he unmatched. And I was like, what's your game? What game was this? You literally like, you were the one who was like, you're hot. And I was like, oh, I think you're hot too. And he was like, bye. Like,
just
why? But it really stung.
Like if you're not going to actually interact, don't be here.
Yeah.
Dude, I literally had one recently and like, it blew my mind because I don't think I'd experienced this thing previously. Maybe I had, and I just blocked it out, honestly. But like where we had talked and we had like a pretty good rhythm, a pretty good banter. And that is rare on apps. In my
experience. Really bad.
So,
it is. Yeah.
So rare. So we have that rhythm. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, we're going to probably get married. Like, I think this is reasonable to assume because the bar is so low on these things. And he was like, oh, how about we go to this restaurant? I think you'd really like it, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, okay. Just stopped responding. I assume he like, I don't know if he like fell into the ocean. He's like, his phone died once he hit the sea. I don't get it. And I even tried to be like, what is the protocol there? Do I write him back and like make a joke about the fact that he's gone? And then, which is what I did. And then he still didn't write back. And I was like, this is chilling. Like it is a pandemic. I thought we were supposed to give more fucks, but I have not noticed an increase of fucks being given.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that type of dating apps, just like, it's just like par for the course. Like don't ever get excited about anyone ever. And like Allison has had it when he's been like, when he was like on his way over to her house and then just stopped responding.
No. Okay. On the other side of that, I will tell you, the thing that I have done that like, I'm not proud of, but I'm not ashamed of either. There was a guy who was like, hey, do you want to meet at this cafe tomorrow? And I was like, okay, sure. And it was like, that night I was thinking about it and I was like, Lane, what do you even like about this person? Nothing. You don't know this person at all. We weren't vibing. We didn't have like a great banter. He had just been like, I am a man, want coffee? And I was like, fine. And I was like, you know what? No, I am not going to go on this. And like, maybe I should have handled it differently. But again, we had like 3 messages. We didn't have like a strong connection. And I just unmatched. I was like, no, this guy put in barely any effort. I'm not gonna. Yeah. And I don't need to be like, you know what? I just wasn't feeling a connection. We said 2 things to each other. He wasn't that good. So I think one of the things for me, and I know a lot of women are like, giving less, like when it's okay to peace. It's different when it's like, oh, we like kind of had a thing going. But when it's very like, hello, hi, would you like to get coffee? I mean, I guess like. Yeah.
I've definitely done that.
Ruined that guy's day. If I did something
it's
wrong.
like I match with someone and you kind of don't really look at their pictures that much. But then when you're like, they're like, want to go out? And then you go back to their profile and you're like, wait a minute.
What have I done?
I don't even think this person is really attractive.
What bums me out? Like, that's what these guys must have done with me.
Yeah.
Must have been like, oh, whatever. And then actually looked at my profile and be like, never mind. Man.
But you can't. The way I try to look at it is like, I try to look at it as just like, in the same way that like me being like, I'm gonna unmatch this dude. I don't want to go to coffee with him. Like, he might have been a really good dude. I hope it didn't ruin his day. I hope he was able to just be like, oh, she wasn't the one. We weren't a good match. I wasn't like, see you in hell, bitch. And then unmatched him. Like, I don't wish him any harm. It was just like, oh, this isn't like that strong of a connection. I don't want to sit for 2 hours with somebody I'm not excited about. And I don't want him to spend his time with me when I'm not excited about him. So I try to look at it that way when I see stuff like that, where it's like, oh, they unmatched. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe they only like girls with septum rings, and they thought I had one and I didn't.
Right.
I tried to
It's
keep
so
it as
arbitrary. It can be
Right.
anything. Yeah.
but instead of making it this,
Yeah, it's
this
hard
big
not to overanalyze, but it's really good to try not to.
yeah, and I'm not perfect at it either, but it's like I'm just realizing like these are just, and I think it's hard when you're somebody who like I am a hopeless romantic. I want to find that. Do I think it's going to be on apps? I don't know. But
Yeah.
but pandemic, especially, you're like, how am I going to meet anyone? I had trouble meeting people even before when I was going out. So it's a weird,
Right.
it's a weird time, and it's just not the way we were told it was going to be. I think is the other thing. Like we were told it was going to be like, say hello, talk a little, connection. Oh my, date now, more date now, relationship, marriage. And it doesn't really work that way most of the time on dating apps. It like goes in this swirly mind fuck.
Yep.
And that's what's so exhausting about it, I think. It's not even, it's because it no longer, I don't want to say this as a full indictment of whatever. Some people have good experiences, but it's no longer as simple as like, oh my God, we like each other. We're going to pursue this. It's like, we like each other. Who knows if that will matter? Like, and that's such a bummer to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the story that we were told and the romanticism and all of that. It's turning out to not be true at all. But like at the same time, like these stories of, the people in the 50s who like meet and then date for a little bit and then get married and have a baby, like, we've realized, our generation has realized that like, oh, actually, that's not really the best model either.
Yeah, right.
But we're still struggling to
define
define what it should be.
It's like we definitely shouldn't be encouraging people to get married at 25, but like we should still be putting some sort of, there is something to a romantic
accountability,
connection with
effort.
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're starting to demand more of people, which I think is good. But like, I think a lot of people have not caught up.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
it's just like commitment is just, it's not the future. Like,
which like, what is that even? I take issue with that as somebody who's like a word person. Like, here's the thing, like if like non-monogamy is your shit, that's totally fine. But again, in terms of the extremes, there's something in between. Like if you don't want monogamy, that's okay. There can still be accountability though, and respect. And like, that's be that. So like, but I think there's this idea with so many people who misuse the idea of polyamory and non-monogamy as just like, I can do whatever and you can't say anything. And it's like, oh, that's just, you're a dick. That's not non-monogamy. That's not polyamory.
Yeah.
People
there's still commitment within
polyamory.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
it's just co-opting that like, oh yeah, I love the idea of this. I'm like, I don't think you fully read the article, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I think you read the headline and you picked apart what you wanted. And I think but then even, I have conversations because I do try to suss out when I'm talking to people on dating apps, like, are they somebody who wants a relationship, who's looking for something deep and real and meaningful and romantic, because that's what I want. But then you'll still get people who are like, oh my God, yeah, that's totally what I want. And then are still giving you fuckboy vibes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, you like the idea of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't offer that. You don't have that in stock.
Yeah.
You cannot, this is what I've learned. You cannot trust people to know what they want and like to tell you about it. Like there's just so many people who like think they know what they want, but they haven't actually, and either that or they legitimately don't know what they want and they have not thought about it.
But then why are you on a dating app? I don't know. I guess
I know.
Some people are like, I'm exploring it. I'll know it when I see it. And I'm like, will you, Brian?
No.
Will you?
No, you won't.
Well,
Men especially are guilty of this because there's so much less societal like conditioning for men to be introspective and like to think about these things. So I think a lot of guys who are in this realm who like say like, yeah, I want these things. It's because they just feel like that's like what they need to have.
Yeah.
More than like what they really want.
I was just having this conversation with a guy friend and he was just like, I was like, don't you know like what you want in like your future? And he was like, yeah, but I don't like talk about it really. And I was like, he was like, I just think like when it'll just happen. It'll just happen. And I'm like, men never like plan things. They have this like, they're like, I don't have to plan it. It will just happen. It will just materialize.
Don't have to. I don't think they have to. Men have the upper hand.
Absolutely.
Most of the time. If they're ready for a relationship, they just say, I'm ready for a relationship. And it does happen for them because they have the upper hand.
I was just skimming this in your book about when you're like, they just get to choose like they're kings.
It's true.
Just really true. And then you have to be like, oh my God, he chose me. I'm amazing. I'll go, I guess. But it's like, and so much of that is even, there's so many thoughts about this. I'm trying to get to them, but it's like so much of it is like this, like all of it is patriarchy. First of all, but the reason they have the upper hand is because they wrote the fucking rule book. Like you wrote the rules. The house always wins. Of course you're gonna win. Like you told women that like they only have until a certain age to like find love, and then you also like, I mean, men didn't write this, but still, if you want to have kids, you have a uterus, you only have until a certain age to have children. So like we have no choice but to plan ahead. And I love that like the same people who like made all these rules are still like, women are rushing for what? And I'm like, that's gaslighting, Brad. Yeah. Like we're rushing because you've made us rush. And also because of the idea that like we
have to.
Yeah. And because we have all these, again, born from the same patriarchy that's like, if a woman's over a certain age and she's not married yet, why? And it's like, but we don't do that with men. Men can like be single until they're like 75 and then finally settle down at 78. And people are like, good for him. He finally found a woman who was worthy. But like, we don't do that with women.
He didn't do anything. He just one day decided like, today's the day.
Yeah, he was 75 years old and he looked like an old pair of shoes by a river and he decided to start fucking models. And we're like, yeah. We were like, oh, good for him. He finally got what he wanted. But like, I watch friends of mine who are like in their 40s and stuff and they're dating 20-year-old guys and people will be like, what the fuck? And I'm like, all right. Like, I see it. And it's like, yeah, it's just really frustrating. And that's why there's not that pressure. But on the other hand, I do know that there are men who are romantics and they're just like dealing with some stuff. But similarly, like we don't socialize men to want that in the same way. So when they do, I don't even know that they want it. And that's and if they do know that they want it, it's like it doesn't matter because again they don't have the pressure of like it has to happen now. So like
they don't have the timeline like leaning on their shoulders like hello.
Yeah,
and must decide now.
No, because they know that their value's not dictated by that. Like and again, it is wild to me because it's like I know so many women who are like incredible and single and awesome. And so when I meet, it's hard for me. It's something I'm like working on when I meet a guy who's just like, oh, I can't find anyone. I'm like, I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I don't believe you.
Around you. I know this guy who like has dated so many awesome, amazing women. Yeah. And he finds the weirdest things to break up with them, like the weirdest reasons. And I'm just like, look at yourself. You have had so many opportunities to date amazing, beautiful, intelligent women. And like none of them are good. And I'm just like, look at yourself. Just look at yourself.
Yeah. But they have looked at themselves and they've seen themselves reflected. The worst of them, like the worst of men have been reflected in media as the best of men. Yeah. Like, it's so, And we've been sold this, like a lot of what there's a chapter in How to Be Alone that's like all about all the things that we were taught in like movies and TV shows about like what men would be like and what romantic relationships would be like. And I really wanted to focus on that. I think it's so important to talk about because we had so many men who were writing these movies about men being like incredibly romantic and smart and funny and like the women just kind of sitting there. And the truth is always reversed in real life to me, where I'm like, wait, where are these, where are these like incredible women who are like multifaceted and all these things? And where are these men who are just like so romantic and so smooth and so funny and so warm and so, oh yeah, I come from an amazing family. Oh yes, my heart is open. Oh, I want love. Oh, first date, milady. Like, not the milady part, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where the fuck is that? We were all told that was what every man was like. And that's just been jarring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've also been feeling like, also like all of the advice for women is just like, become the person that someone would want to date and like, you know, be like, make all the money and do whatever you want and like be fun and have your hobbies and also like be interesting and smart and articulate and like build yourself up into this amazing person. And the person someone will choose you. And it's like, I see so many women who do this and I have done it and tried to do it. And it's like, it still doesn't work.
And then men are like, with men, we're like, are you breathing? Oh my God, you're doing so great, babe. Like, I just like.
I do have a different perspective on that, only because I feel like women tell each other these things more than what men are telling us.
Mm-hmm.
Not any man has ever told me work on yourself. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, men just want someone who's hot. That's the first thing they see. They go hot first and then everything else later. So it's like, we can work on ourselves. But at the end of the day, if we're not physically their type, they're not going to fucking take a look at us. And that's just what I believe to be true, is like, no matter how much you are working on yourself and have all this confidence, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it will do things. It'll do things for you. But I think the way society is structured right now, it's like, if a guy's just not physically attracted to you, it's just not going to fucking happen.
Which is so interesting because, you know, of course, we're telling women the opposite, where it's like, oh, please date somebody who like doesn't remotely turn you on because maybe he's really nice.
You will eventually be attracted to him. And we say this like, oh, there's other qualities and like, you know, he's going to treat you well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a TikTok about this.
Yeah, I have a TikTok about that. It like blew up because I was like, no to this. Like we specifically will tell women like, just date someone who you think is disgusting because he'll treat you better. But I can tell you, and I know a lot of women.
He's a nice guy. Just give him a chance.
Yeah.
Wild. Like, and then you have all these women who are like, oh, you know, I'm having problems having an orgasm. I'm having problems getting wet. And I'm like, maybe that's because we've all been told not to date anybody who we even remotely are attracted to. And I've done it. And I can also say, and it was interesting to talk about this and have people be like, oh my God, same. Because the ones that you don't think are attractive, they don't treat you any better.
Exactly. They're shitty too.
Like they treat you like shit too. So I'm just like, it's just so, but we've all bought into this idea of like, oh, but he treats me really well. And he's like so good. He makes up for how hideous I find him.
He looks like a thumb, but like so nice.
But it's like, it's just interesting to me because every now and again, you know, guys would reply to that video and they would just be like, they would be so angry about it. And I'm like, look, no one's saying that like, you're all ugly and like, screw you guys. But like, also men are telling women that all the time. Men are like, she's ugly. She has no value. Yeah. I'm not trying to even it out and do that with men. But what I am saying is y'all are allowed to like what you like. And we are actively encouraging women to settle and telling them that's all they deserve. And that's fucked. Right.
Yeah, exactly. All of that.
It's so frustrating. So because of that, and that's honestly part of the reason that like I had unmatched that dude on that dating app. I was like, what are you doing? You're not attracted to this guy at all.
Yeah.
Because again, and here's the thing, okay? Because I can already hear like a potential
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't have them like a shitty male listener, but I can already hear like the voice of a potential shitty male listener being like, well, then why did you even swipe on him? See, that's the problem. The problem is women. You're swiping on us and giving us false hope.
Yeah.
No. I'm going to take you back a step. The problem is still fucking patriarchy because you have conditioned me to swipe on guys I'm not that into.
Yeah.
And then try to make the best out of this.
Yeah.
If I had been told I could like what I like, we're saving everybody time.
Yeah.
Like, stop blaming
Exactly.
women.
Like, and they will like you back.
Exactly.
Yes!
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel
hard.
like the
This
problem.
patriarchy wastes everyone's time.
Yes,
It
yes,
really
it really is. And I feel like the problem is that these dating apps are not designed for people to actually find someone. They're attached to, or they're designed to make you stay on the app longer. So you see more ads so they
Totally.
can make money. And it's like, it's just this entire machine of like time wasting, and so much of what is important for us, for women, is not wasting time. Like we're like trying to get to the thing because we're on a time limit.
Dude, okay. So I'm talking to this guy on a dating app right now, and we were like kind of having a good vibe, whatever. We were talking for like 2 or so days. He's like saying he wants something romantic, all these things. The last thing he hit me with was, so what's your Instagram? If I could have blown up my phone, and I literally wrote him back and I was like, why? So you can flirt with me on a separate app? And he was like, oh, yeah, exactly. And I was like, let's all explode. Like, I literally just texted him back a crying emoji. Like, I cannot with you. Take a look at yourself, sir. I thought the point of this was to form a relationship. Like, now you want to flirt with me on IG? Like, for what? Like, I don't have time for this. I've already spent 2 days trying to suss out if you're safe, trying to suss out if you're funny, if you're fun,
if you're a normal person. Yeah.
If you're a normal person, take me out now. How is this so hard? Like,
they don't care about that. They just don't care. It's like, it really is not the same, just not the same attitude. They're going into it at
this point,
different attitude.
I am so exhausted. I'm so exhausted by it that even the thought of like having an engaging conversation with someone I like on a dating app, I'm just like, why though? Because the chances that they're just going to be like, actually, I'm getting back together with my girlfriend, or like whatever, or nothing comes of it. I'm always
or
just
they
like,
just want to keep being your pocket girlfriend. And like, it's crazy because I've experienced this with all genders. I've experienced men, women, like it's, even people who are just like, yes, like it doesn't, gender maybe plays into it some amount, but it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, where like people think they know what they want and they just don't. I mean, sometimes I feel like at least 90%, I know what I want and it's legitimately what I want. I'm sure there's a gray area in there of like, there's still some stuff I haven't worked through, but mostly like I'm a straight shooter. I know what's up. I know, let's do this. And you want to assume that the people you're talking to are the same. And it is so frustrating when you're like,
so not. I know I have done the things. I have like done meditations and like come up with lists of like all the things that I want in a partner. And
it
like
was
have like
last night. So
and I've done it. And like, it's just like so few people have other people have done it.
Well, it's just, again, it's also like, so many men are socialized to just see it as like, I want this. Like so many of the profiles that like I'll post on Tinder Live are men literally writing up like an order form of what they want in a woman.
Yeah.
And exactly like that card. How is that useful? We'll pause for this.
It's New York.
It's extremely New York. But so many men will write up this list for what they want in a partner, like they're ordering them off of Amazon. And it's like, I'll see these lists that are like, must be hot, this, no bitches, blah, 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 blah.
I know.
Women are just like, could I just have like, don't kill me and be like pretty nice and you want a commitment? And men are like, disgusting amount of needs. Like,
but yeah. That kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where men think they know what they want, but they really don't. What they want is like what they see on TV, or like what they've been, they're victims of the media too, right? Where it's they want what they think they must have in order to be like the quote unquote, like, you know, successful guy. So it's like, I need to be really successful in my career. I need to have a hot wife and she's got to do this. And that's what I should have. But they don't
and a
think
very narrow definition of what hot is. Very narrow.
Very narrow definition of everything. Very narrow. Yeah. It's all very surface level where it's like, they don't really have, a lot of them don't have that level of introspection that we're more inclined
to have also, like we've been asked to have that, you know. It's like some of it is because I don't like any sort of, I think it can get dicey when people are just like, you know, biologically we're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know about all of that.
No.
But in terms, and I know you didn't mean it like that, but I just mean sometimes the people are just like, women are just like this. And I'm like, everyone is socialized in a certain way. I don't think, because, you know, you see examples of that all the time where it's like, I know there are men who like are super romantic leaning, want a relationship, are introspective, have those qualities, but you know, we're socialized to just breed that out of them. Like, you know what, just take that out, just go for someone hot. And it's like, it's damaging all genders.
Totally. It's a lot more about optics, the way that men are socialized.
Yes.
To care more about how they look or how they appear to others in that way. I mean, we obviously have our own social conditioning of being beauty obsessed, but to please men at the end of the day, because that's what men demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is, you know, it's like, I have to have hope though. It's like every time I'm tempted to like go down the like, oh, it's all bad. I'm just like, I have to have hope though. Otherwise, like, what am I doing? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I totally have hope. I definitely have hope because I have examples and I have friends who are happily married to men that I know are like actually decent people and they're happy. And I'm like, so I know it can happen. Like I personally know examples of this.
Yes.
And I always just try to come back to that of like, it is possible.
Yeah, but it's still
hard.
But again, I think that that's like so valuable about like what you're doing and what I'm doing, which is like, it is not saying that like all of this is trash, but it is validating that a lot of this is really fucking hard in the meantime. And I don't like, there's something about that is so incredibly essential and healing for people who like, it is so natural to want love and a connection. And what's going on right now culturally with dating is fucking rough. So I think there's something important, you know, to that. And it's so funny because I feel like, you know, if people were just like familiar with your Instagram or people didn't know me personally from Tinder Live or whatever, I imagine they would think we were these like cynical, like mean fucking,
I know,
you know, and I'm like, we're both like smiley little elves who want romance. Like it's not. I
know, yeah. People always think like if they have like a top level idea of us and Allison and like that we're just like, we're feminazis. We just hate all men and like all this stuff. And it's like, no, we have expectations. And like, I honestly think that men can do better. Like
that's literally all it is. And one of my favorite things too, is like when I always love like men's reactions to Tinder Live because most men have never seen a woman's perspective on a dating app. So when they see what this is, it gives them two things. One of the things it gives them makes me a little frustrated, which is, wow, man, I'm doing great then. I'm an amazing man.
Yeah.
Because they see,
I've never done that.
Right, exactly. They're like, I'm not that dead. Yeah, no, I'm still crushing it. Yeah. That's frustrating. But the other one is that, you know, I think that there is a level of like, I want Tinder Live to be educational also, because I know that some of it, a good chunk of it, I believe, is with the more innocuous offenses, not like straight up racist, straight up sexist, all these things, are men who like don't know that's how they're coming off. And so I really do try to approach it with like, look, maybe you don't know that when you say this, it's really read like this, but you should know that because you're you're making this other person not feel great and you're not getting what you want either. So like, I really do try to take a like full picture approach of like, I'm not just being like, men are trash, women are perfect. It's like, no, I want to assume that like many of these guys actually want a connection and they don't understand. This is it. This is your
that's a very forgiving perspective. And then I also do that too. And there's nuance. It's not black and white.
Right. And when it is black and white, I'm happy to call that out. When no, this is just hateful. Like I'm happy to just go all in on that. But when it's just like, oh, you don't know this, like it's so funny. One of the most clear-cut examples of this to me that I see are how many men's profiles are like, first of all, don't do this. Second of all, don't do this. Third of all, if you're going to do this, don't even bother. But it's like the yelling. If there's anyone who could have a yelling profile, it's women. And we don't. Like, I'm sure someone does, but like, not really, not the way.
There is definitely like the tendency in my head when I'm like looking at Tinder, like I have this running mental list of like, oh, fuck, don't do that. Like, oh, I just want to yell at them. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should put that in my profile. Like, no, whatever. Right, and then I'm like, no, pull it back. Don't do it. Like,
right. Oh, I totally see what you're saying. I have the same thing where it's like, it is tempting to just be like, only match with you if you actually want to meet up. Yeah. But I'm not going to do that because we know how it fucking sounds.
Yes. And I saw a profile like that recently that was like, don't match with me if you're not going to respond. And I was like, you look like a nice person otherwise. And just because you said that, I'm going to swipe left because that's
totally. Because for all I know,
not it.
We all feel that way, but you don't need to spell it out. It just changes the tone.
Right. Well, and because it's like, we can't know where that's coming from, right? Like for me, if I were to say, and I'm not going to do that, but if I were to say like, please only message me if you actually want to meet up, what I would mean is, fuck, it is rough having these conversations when like the person's not really ready to actually go out on a date.
Yeah.
But it feels like when men say it like that and you put it in the profile that it's like, listen, you dumb, annoying bitches. Yeah. I gave you a perfect opening line and you didn't, or like it doesn't read like that. So that's why I'm like, okay, you don't see this as like.
Yeah.
They just don't see how they're coming off. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if they're interested, that is what's going to happen. You don't have to spell it out. It's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, I shouldn't. Right. If this is the right person, they should. I can't imagine that my soulmate is someone who's like, well, I really want to go out with Lane, but first she must yell at me about how to treat her. And then I'll realize that like, it shouldn't like, they shouldn't be that far away.
I think I would date a guy like that, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's like, it's just so funny. Like, I don't want that to have to be it. I don't want to like, I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm dealing with, like going back on this dating app for, however many hours this is going to last for me this time. But like, is like, there's that part of you that's like, wait, why didn't they write back? Should I say something else? And I'm like, I'm so tired of like trying to train men on how to behave. It's just like, well, you got to show them. No, they're a full grown up. Why do I have to show them how to have a conversation that leads to a date?
Yeah. I'm not trying to fix people anymore. That's like what I did in all of my 20s. Like, don't need it.
And I
have they gotten this far?
Oh yeah, Allison. I think Allison has to go because she's moving today, so she's on a timetable.
But shit to do. But I will end my. I don't know if you guys want to keep talking, but I will.
I didn't realize.
No, it's okay.
I'll end this by saying, and what I like about the topic of being alone and stuff is, and I think I've said this a few times on the podcast before, where it's like we have these standards now that we know we have. We know what we want.
Yeah,
and it might take. We don't know how long it's going to take for somebody to click with us, to vibe with us in that way and actually meet our expectations, be attractive to us. We just don't know and we can't force it.
Yeah.
So it's so important to really be happy, enjoying your own company and your friendships and truly being okay with being single and not just saying you're fine, but really, truly you can still want a relationship, but you can still have joy in being single and being, you know, alone, quote unquote. That's the reality of it. And I feel for me, it's like, okay, it could be another 10 years. Like I want it to be now, but I'm mentally like, it could be another decade. It could be another 2 decades before I find that person. And I just don't want to settle. I don't want to fucking settle.
And you don't want to, one of the things I tell myself is I'm like, let's just say worst case scenario, quote unquote, worst case. I meet my soulmate at fucking 70 years old. Mm-hmm. Do I want to waste the most of my life being pissed about that? Yeah. Worrying about that. And I don't. If I meet them, if I know and I believe and I do that I'm going to meet this person, I've got to use this time and enjoy this time. Mm-hmm. And nothing is easy, but it's the only way. It really is. Otherwise, you're your life.
That is so, those were so right on. And I think we just solved a bunch of like the world's problems right now.
I think so too. I feel like everyone's fine now.
Did it, you guys.
Podcast closed.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people follow you and
all the things? On Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, I'm at Hello Lane Moore, and you can find How to Be Alone in any bookstore, website, all the things.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link to everything in the show notes. Well, that's all. Allison has to go. This has been The Single Podcast, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.